RFP, but what we've done here is we do have a sample artwork that we have had our in-house printmaker prepare that will be part of the flagship collection. And so I think it'll just be helpful for everyone to see, what our process was going through that and what we would expect to see for the initial submission versus the final submission. The reason we are breaking it out into two separate submissions is simply because we would not want an artist to invest time, materials, money, basically, into producing an edition and going through the printing exercise should they not be selected. So, a little introduction to us, and I think the best way to probably find out more about Second Empire at this point would be to go to our Instagram profile. Our website is live, but it is simply a placeholder. So I would kind of tune in on Instagram if possible. That one is updated more regularly, and it has previews of the patterns of the different materials and the products that we're going to be doing. So it's myself, Nancy Shepard, and my business partner, Sarah Parker Charles. We are both interior designers by trade, and we do practice interior design through Carvel and Helm Design Group, which is a local consulting firm. So moving outside of the consulting realm, we're getting more into the other aspects of interior design and really into more of the decorative arts component of that practice. One thing we've always wanted to do, we founded Carvel and Helm 10 years ago. And we've always looked or created opportunities to engage local artists in the work where we could. And so I think by launching Second Empire, we're really kind of taking that by the reins and trying to act as a bridge between local artists, printmakers, ceramic artists, lighting designers, and giving them opportunities to actually produce or distribute rather their products and materials. Our target market is not local. It's partially local, but it would be national, and also I would say North American at some point. So the reach here is intended to be fairly broad in terms of who we would be marketing the artwork and the other materials to. The difference, I would say, which is important to distinguish here between what we're doing and maybe what a traditional gallery would do, is we are not representing artists or I'll say championing their careers in any way. We're curating collections that fine art are simply a part of. They are one component that's paired with tile, wall covering, lighting, rugs, mirrors, and that types of thing. Um, so there, that I do want to just distinguish, and in the contract that would come, which as we discuss more at the end of the presentation, there is a level of exclusivity, but certainly not in any geographic region and not in any other light other than that this work would be specific and exclusive to Second Empire. But of course, the rights remain copyright to the artist. Um, it would be a limited edition that would be distributed solely through Second Empire. So I think this kind of captures at a very high level what we're up to. Certainly, if you wanted to have a look at those patterns, at those tiles, what the kind of aesthetic is. Like I said, I do invite you to go to Instagram. We are including a little sneak peek on the next few slides. These are preliminary. We've adjusted some of the colorways and things like that, but you're starting to see kind of the um, collections here in terms of tile, wall covering, mirrors, lighting. We can go to the next slide where there's a couple of different examples. So we are working with a Newfoundland ceramic artist on these handmade and glazed ceramic tiles for wall surfaces specifically. The wall coverings are designed and produced in-house, so we are actually printing them down here on Job Street on commercial grade fire rated wall covering in large format panels. Go to the next slide. I think there's a few more pattern options here. So there's some here that are more traditional in terms of the damask with the repeat, and then there's more of kind of the mural abstracted version. All of this is very indicative, I think, of the color palette, which you may or may not want to choose to be mindful of. It's not a consideration necessarily, but keeping in mind that these are kinds of the types of other colors and patterns that would be surrounding the selected artwork. So, it's a consideration in terms of what may be chosen in the end, for what would complement. Unfortunately, because we haven't launched the collection yet, the website is going live January 13th. There is only so much that we can disclose in advance. So again, I do encourage you to loop in on the social media solely for that reason. And here's an example too, where we're working with the ceramic artist. That Southcott blue tile in the background is the first glaze as part of the first collection, but we're working with them on other glazes and trying to match them to that scorched pattern is what we call it, that kind of abstracted floral mural. So these are the two materials that we've made the most headway with, would be the wall covering and the tile. Right now we're really heads down exploring, identifying some printmakers. Um, as you guys likely know, wall covering was traditionally screen printed. So we do want to stick with printmakers in terms of a medium that we thought would marry really well with this kind of what was more of a traditional decor. This one here is a hand drawn, again, a floral motif, but it's a little bit more um, traditional than what some of the other patterns in the collection. We can go to the next one. Okay, so that was the sneak peek. Any questions on that part? No? Okay. So for the initial submission, we're looking for simply the conceptual work. Um, Ideally, it would be in keeping with the flagship collection themes. So Second Empire, the kind of namesake of the company, it's actually an architectural movement. And a lot of downtown St. John's, anything that's referred to as a Southcott house that has the arched windows and the mansard roof, that is actually the Second Empire architectural style. Southcott is the architect. John Southcott is who practiced in that style. So locally, we know them as Southcott houses, but it is actually a Second Empire architecture. So within that movement, which was not unique to Newfoundland, these were kind of the themes that drove that style at the time: abundance, modernization, and weight. So fairly kind of, I'll say, loose. We want to keep it loose for the artist in terms of how those are interpreted. We don't want this to be like a design brief, the way a graphic designer might receive, a work to be done in response to. So it's intentionally loose. I don't know that you would need more direction than this, and we're certainly open to, like I say, the interpretation of that. Um, but that's kind of what's driving our patterns and our color palette within our, internally here as we work on our own designs. So for the artist, for the initial submission, ideas and sketches, please do not go ahead and complete a full piece. Do so at your own risk. And the format is flexible. Not everybody hands sketches. So if you have a photograph, or if you prefer to work in Photoshop, or if it's digital of any kind, any visually way to communicate your idea would be acceptable. Um, and I think when you're planning your piece, we wanted to state here at the end to just please consider the required quantity. We are looking for a print run of 13, 10 of which are for sale. One we keep for our own archive, and the St. Michael Printshop will be keeping one for their archive and one for their print sale. So that's where those other three are going. So if you want to do a 12 color screen print and you don't think you can do 13, then don't do 12 colors, basically. So I think, as much as abundance is part of, one of the underlying concepts, please don't choose to translate that into 12 colors unless you think you can pull that off. So we can go to the next phase. This is where we're getting into kind of an example of what Krista Power did for her print. So she was kind of, again, we were playing with what was more of a traditional floral motif. We literally had some dried up dead sunflowers and introducing some technology to that. So she was scanning these and kind of moving them around on our scanner to create these images. So this is what we would consider a quote unquote sketch, right? It's not the finished piece. It was the first step of her process. So where we're asking for a proposed title, which we're not married to in any way, we proceeded with this as wilted. And where we have a brief description, the one sentence, that's what's showing here in the presentation in the italics. So it's more of a modern still life of dying sunflowers. It's kind of a literal description of what you expect this piece to be. Of course, because this is the initial, we know that this is going to evolve should you proceed with the piece. And then the 3 to 5 sentences are just bullet points. I mean, we've only provided 3, depending on how concise you are. Like, we're not going to, if you send in 2 sentences, we're not going to eliminate your submission. This is not that strict. But it's just a very brief summary of the intent. So using floral motifs as an homage to the decorative arts and the subject matter is how they've responded to one of the themes, capturing and manipulating the images with modern technology, and then adding the complexity and the weight through color selections of both the paper and the ink and the multiple layers. So if you go to the finished product on the next slide, the weight came through with the paper color was black. So that gave it a depth, and it certainly adjusted the colors. And then we ended up doing a 3-color print. It's shown here in this image hung against a very busy wall covering. Um, but that's kind of how we got. She chose to translate those 3 ideas. Um, she did have the advantage of knowing the color palette. I will say that. Um, so, and then this is in summary where she's gone back then and updated and refined the statements and what the intent was. And she speaks more here to the process because, of course, she's gone through it now, and you can see how she was kind of working with that chromatic aberration, which is typically viewed as a fault in photography, but it certainly created that notion of kind of unsteadiness and the movement, which she was literally dragging and doing as she was creating this image. So the in-print product experimented with the color variations. There was a number of different options where we were going through. There's actually a 2-color of this as well as a 3-color, and all the adjustments that needed to be made. The registration, the screen clogged, the screen broke. So it was quite the endeavor. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with those challenges. So that's again why we just want everyone to keep in mind the quantity and the timelines for when you're developing this piece. Go to the next slide. So this is the key dates. We launched the original RFP document on the 25th. Today is the 4th. Christmas is coming. So we're looking for those sketches as part of the initial submission. The first week, second week, technically, as you come back January 8th. And those are emailed. Those email details are in the RFP document. We will review them fairly quickly, and artists will be notified. Then we're allowing, I think it's close to 5 to 6 weeks between January 8th and the 14th. The reason we say it's to be confirmed is if your screen breaks, we understand and we'll work with you on that. But one of the things we do need to be mindful of is that here in the space, for those of us who are here in person on March the 6th, we are doing a launch event, which would also be, we're referring to it as an exhibition, where we will have the artworks hung with the wall coverings and tile installations on display, lights installed. So we want to make sure we are allowing enough time for at least one piece to be framed between the February 14th and March 6th. So it's 3 weeks, should be plenty. So we just want to be flexible depending on what the final plan is for the piece, knowing that some might be done in 3 days and others might take 5 weeks. So that's the exhibition date running then for close to a month up until April 3rd. I do want to clarify again that we are not a gallery, so we're working more as a showroom in this space, and we are appointment only. So if you were to have someone who would want to come and see the piece in person, you would just contact us and we can make arrangements. Our offices are upstairs in full disclosure. So, I mean, someone's around, but please make an appointment. And so that's it. Um, we did include a bit of information here on the contract. So that's currently being drafted. It's very boilerplate, very standard. As I mentioned, artists do retain the copyright and ownership of their work. We are taking the industry standard consignment rate the way a gallery would. The pricing will include framing. And in order to, we're targeting a $600 minimum, including the cost of framing. So again, keep that in mind in terms of size, which I know you'll be limited by your screens, but also the quantity of ink, the things that may add value to the piece. To keep in mind the kind of target cost. So, a 5x7 single color probably wouldn't get selected unless you're a rock star. And then please do. The exclusivity, as I mentioned, they are limited to Second Empire. So we're going to do the limited edition run. After that, we would work with you if there was any opportunity or demand for a second edition. If you do have representation with a gallery, we do mention this in the RFP that it is the artist's sole responsibility to contact their gallerist and to negotiate those terms. We are very open to communicating and working with the gallerist in terms of a cost share. But the work itself would have to be sold through Second Empire. And so for the marketing support, we do have a full-time brand strategist, Jamie, who is here with us. And we are going to be promoting this work through all of our newsletters, interviews, campaigns. We will be targeting, like I say, the North American market, particularly the hospitality industry, so meaning hotels and restaurants, things of that nature. One of the things that we ask artists to agree to, should you be selected, is that we would do an artist interview with you that would be sent out to all of our followers and mailing list members. So the contract would be sent to the selected artist in advance of you producing any work so that we would all be in agreement before anyone proceeds. And I don't think there's anything else, unless someone had questions on any of this or the actual RFP document. I think in the document we had said we're looking for 1 to 3 artists, so we would love to find that many. I think it needs to be produced or could be produced at St. Michael's. But certainly, if you have your own studio, feel free. In the RFP document, I think we also mention lithograph, risograph, wood blocks, yeah, etching, screen print. So yes, I stand corrected. Mm-hmm. No, it is not the artist's responsibility. Yeah, good question. So when we have the work delivered here, the 13 pieces, we will sell them framed, and that would be deducted from the retail price as a cost share between us and the artist. So you would never be on the hook for an expensive frame. It would just be deducted from the sale at the 50% rate. So that's something that we would organize. And whether or not how that gets framed and what the frame is, we will work with the artists. I know some artists are more particular than others. We are also very particular, so we will work. Just I can only imagine, because we are probably worse. So we do want to there we may even be selling the frames themselves, Right now, we don't have a frame profile selected for this collection, but it could be something, to be honest, like depending on the pieces we land with, that there's one frame style for all the different pieces for that collection. It's that type of, truly, it's art as decor, but we're trying to bridge the gap between a gallery and winners. We want really quality work made with integrity that's affordable and accessible to people and that's fair to the artists. Okay. So the question was, I'm not sure because I have the microphone, but the question was whether or not artists would be responsible for framing costs. So not upfront, but they would be deducted from the cost of the sale, shared. We are looking, as I mentioned, if we are going to be doing the framing ourselves, like that would be the most, we will be taking a very economical approach to the framing as much as possible. Everybody leave. Okay. Hi, guys. Okay. I think the plan is to post this information session for those who couldn't attend, but even for those who have attended, if you're open for a little competition, please spread the word. um, and if you have any questions at all, please feel free to, this is our contact information here. It's the info at Second Empire Surfaces, or you can certainly contact St. Michael's Printshop and Drew or Luca will respond. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your time. What time is it? We made good time. Perfect. Halftime, not even dark out. Okay. Thanks, guys.